Hello everyone! Today, we'll be seeing how fast Primarina can beat Pokemon Moon in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the video. Yesterday, for our previous Pokemon Moon run, we played with Incineroar, and having that Pokemon learn Intimidate as its hidden ability has actually been very good, despite my history of criticizing this ability because of wasted text and frames. But I guess with the difficulty curve of Pokemon Moon, it ended up helping quite a lot, especially for the champion fight. Today though, we're going to be running Primarina. And in my opinion, it's honestly one of the best water type starters. I still think the best one overall is probably Swampert because Water Ground is such a busted typing, but Water Fairy is a great one too. We have 80 HP, 74 attack and defense, 126 special attack, 116 special defense, and 60 speed. And just like all the other starters, we are in the medium-slow level up group, which for a game that will not have trainer boosted experience points, and the higher level we are, the less XP we'll gain, it'll definitely help out a lot for the early game. Also, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but if you paid attention to the base stats of Decidueye and Incineroar and now Primarina, why are the Alolan starters so freaking slow? It's so strange. Like why Alola has low speed stats. I actually saw a statistic that Gen 7 has the lowest average speed stat, and compared to second to last place, it's like a 12-point difference, which is kind of insane. And normally with low speeds like this, it would be a good idea to run this game with a plus speed nature, but I'm actually not running plus speed today. I'm actually going to be running a modest nature for extra special attack and less attack. Speed isn't going to be a huge concern for us because we're going to make up for it with our hard-hitting attacking moves. And for our ability, I'm actually going with our normal ability Torrent. You may be wondering why not its hidden ability, Liquid Voice. This will turn all sound-based moves into water moves. I really do not want to do that, especially since I want to use Echoed Voice for the water trial, or perhaps use it in some other spots. So having that move become water is honestly a bad idea, so let's just stick with Torrent. And our hidden power typing today will be Hidden Power Fire. This will be our answer to deal with the grass type trial on Akala Island, because without that it's going to be rough. Plus if the Lurantis decides to spawn in a cast form as its helper, it could set up Sunny Day and make Hidden Power Fire even better. And also, to be fair, Melee Island, which is the first island in the Alola region, doesn't really have much to offer for a Pokemon Moon solo run. There's just a normal type trial here with Alolan Raticate, or a Gumshoos if you're playing Pokemon Sun, and then there's the Kahuna fight with Hala. Nothing really eventful. We're going to have an easy time at both of them, since both the Alolan Raticate and Hala's entire team will be weak to Fairy. But wait, what Fairy moves do we get? If you look at our level up moveset, we have 5 level 1 moves, but our actual starting moveset is Pound, Water Gun, Growl, and Disarming Voice. It's a good thing that Disarming Voice skips accuracy checks, which I actually didn't know, and since Sparkling Aria is only learned at level 1, or you can learn it via evolution from Brionne to Primarina, we are not going to be evolving because we start with the final stage Pokemon, so we're not going to have access to this move until literally the Elite Four. And until then, we're going to have to deal with some lower powered water moves. The rest of our moves include Aqua Jet at level 15, which uses our lower attacking stat, then Encore, which is actually pretty good in solo runs. I'm not sure how it would do in Moon. Then we get Bubble Beam at 24, followed by Sing, gross, Double Slap, also gross, Hyper Voice, Moon Blast, Captivate, Hydro Pump, and Misty Terrain. And you may be wondering, well, don't you get any good water type moves via TM or something? Well, sort of. If we take a look at our TM set, we do get all the ice type moves. We also get TM01 Workup, which is going to be a very great setup move. And then we also get Psychic and Shadow Ball, Echoed Voice, which I mentioned earlier, and for some reason this thing learns Energy Ball. I don't know how, but the only other water TMs this thing learns are Scald, Surf, and Waterfall. You may be wondering where Surf and Waterfall are. Those TMs are in the post game. Yeah, our best water type move is going to be Scald until we get access to the Elite Four and relearn Sparkling Aria. And with all that information out of the way, Primarina is essentially just a slow water type. It gets access to a lot of different moves, but not too much coverage, but it does get the coverage that it needs. So why don't we test out Primarina's strengths in the early game and go take on the normal type trial against the Totem Alolan Raticate. Right away, I use a disarming voice. I outspeed it because of the quick claw I got from the trainer school, and surprisingly, the Eradicate doesn't get one shot. But that's fine though, disarming voice technically hits both opponents in a double battle, so I can knock out both the Rattata and the Eradicate at once. And with the normal type trial cleared out, we can make our way through the next couple of routes, do some more talking, do another rival fight. Nothing really eventful here as I've mentioned. Melee Island's a pretty small island, not much to do here. And effectively the next thing to do is to do the Island Kahuna fight with Hala, and I think we're going to have an easy time here. Hala leads off with his Mankey. He usually likes to go Focus Energy turn 1, which he does, but Disarming Voice one-shots. Next up is the Makuhita. It flinches me with Fake Out, followed by Sand Attack, but I am able to land the 2-shot because Disarming Voice never misses. Then on the Crab Brawler, I get Quick Claw activation, and then I can outspeed and one-shot it. And I do want to make clear, starting Generation 5, I believe it's Generation 5, when the Quick Claw activates, it activates whether you're faster or not. So if I ever mention I get a Quick Claw activation, there's a chance it may not have mattered. I don't have all the speed stats memorized. But anyway, completely reset list free Melee Island. Not many of our runs so far have been able to claim that. And now with the ability to use Tauros, I make my way back to Melee Meadow and enter Seaward Cave and get myself the Expert Belt. This will boost the power of super effective moves by 20% and is a generally good universal held item in addition to things like Leftovers and Quick Claw. And you may be wondering where Leftovers are? Those are in the postgame. But we can get access to the Shell Bell as well. Ha, I just realized I rhymed. Nice. But in order to get the Shell Bell, you just gotta enter City Hall before entering the boat to Akala Island. So I can go ahead and get myself that Shell Bell, and then we can go ahead and set sail to Akala Island. And in Akala Island, there are 3 major events going on here. There is the Water Trial, the Fire Trial, and the Grass Trial. Well, there's also the Kahuna fight against Olivia, but we have a type advantage against her rock-type team, so I don't think she's going to be that threatening, but I've learned that even if you have answers for her, she can still be hard with things like Thunder Wave and Continental Crush with her Z move. Also, I do want to mention something funny. I tried to open my bag here to use a potion, but I ended up misclicking the bag and accidentally ended up clicking the Festival Plaza. I really do not like this place, and if you accidentally click that menu icon, you have to finish the tutorial, otherwise Sophocles won't let you leave. It's very annoying time loss when that happens. But I am able to get out of there in no time and continue making my way to the Water Trial. I don't think we're going to have any problems there. I've tended to notice that the Water Trial is very underwhelming, especially if you can learn a move that chains up, like Echoed Voice. Echoed Voice is really good there. Plus sometimes the Totem Wishy-Washy will use Soak on you, turning you into a water type. And for that fight specifically, it ends up being very bad, for him at least, because I will resist all of those water moves. We have a very easy battle against Gladion, then we can enter Brookett Hill, and then we can take on the Totem fight against Wishy-Washy. I go into this fight holding the Silk Scarf as well, and I have workup on my moveset as well. I did debate whether I could go for a workup first, and I do decide to do it. I set up to +1 in special attack, and then I start up the Echoed Voice sweep. But right now, obviously, since I'm playing with a water type, it's really not going to make much of an impact here, the damaging moves that the Wishy-Washies are going to do to me. And because of that, I can completely eliminate them both and complete the Water Trial. And then after the Water Trial, we can chase away the Pseudo-Widows here, and then this kid actually gives me a Mystic Water. This will boost the power of water type moves by 20%. And obviously, if the water move I'm going to use is super effective, the Expert Belt will do just fine. But for better water damage in general, Mystic Water is the better idea. Then inside the Thrifty Megamart, I can go ahead buy a bunch of repels, as well as get the TM for rest. I'm pretty much going to do this on almost every run I do, but I'm still going to mention it for any newcomers that might stumble upon this video. I shouldn't have any problems at the Fire Trial at Wella Volcano Park, but I still do fight some of the local trainers just for a little bit of experience. So with the trial officially underway, I can take care of the Marowak, the Hiker, and then I can go take on the Totem Salazzle. This Salazzle will have a boost to its special defense, which will be a bad thing for us, but hopefully things won't be too bad. But we also have to remember, I do also kind of consider this the poison type trial because that Salazzle and any Salandits that spawn in like to use Toxic and Venoshock, along with things like Torment. So hopefully things don't go too bad. Against the Salazzle, the very first thing it does is go for Toxic, as I hit it with Bubble Beam doing more than half. Then I can actually two-shot it with my second Bubble Beam, but then guess what? The Salandit hits me with Venoshock and I die. But since I had already saved beforehand, if I were to reset, I would have to do the Marowak and the Hiker fight again. So what I decided to do is actually black out to keep the experience, and before I go back, I actually go back to Brookett Hill and get myself a rare candy that I missed. In addition to the TM for Scald. The Scald TM was here, I just forgot to pick it up my first time through, and I 100% blame that for my reset. When I do get back to the Salazzle though, I go for a Scald, it hits me with Torment, and then guess what? Scald one-shots it despite the special defense boost. Yeah, if I had remembered to pick up Scald the first time, that reset would never have happened. Or Blackout I meant to say. But hey, normally the Fire type trial is the hardest one. But we all know the Grass type trial is going to be even worse, especially since the Totem Lurantis has the physical version of Solar Beam, which is Solar Blade, and it's holding a power herb, so whether the sun is up or not, it will get in one free hit without a charge. So in order to prepare for this, I do fight a bunch of the local trainers on this route right before I enter the lush jungle. And honestly, I do feel pretty confident in my abilities to win this fight, so why don't we see how Lurantis goes. The Lurantis does enter the fight with a speed boost, but I'm pretty sure it would outspeed anyway. It does hit me with a fully charged Solar Blade, and I live at 3 hit points remaining as Hidden Power does about 2/3, but then that gives the cast form the opportunity to hit me with Headbutt and knock me out. So because of that, I do take a Blackout. Funnily enough, both of my Blackouts in this run were where I actually defeated the Totem, but then the Helper killed me, which is actually pretty funny. I just take the Blackout to keep the experience. It's generally worth it in Pokemon Moon runs from what I've been noticing. If you end up losing an important fight, since you never really have to catch an HM user anyway, it's pretty much always better to accept the Blackout and keep the XP, especially given the difficulty curves of Gen 7. On the second attempt, Solar Blade actually leaves me at 10 hit points remaining, so hopefully I can survive from the cast form, and I don't. Well, that's another Blackout. After getting to a total of 5 Blackouts in the run, I kept having the same thing happen where I'd beat the Lurantis but then lose to the cast form. So I actually decided to fight a bunch of the trainers that I had missed. I really should have fought them earlier because now since I'm a higher level, they're going to give less XP. It does take me to a grand total of 6 Blackouts in the run to finally defeat the Lurantis and the Helper Pokemon. And because of that, I am finally able to defeat the Grass Trial. Okay, the Rock-type Kahuna fight with Olivia should definitely be easier compared to that. But usually, before I do the Kahuna fight against Olivia, I like to stop in Coney Coney City and maybe pick up an Essence for type boost, maybe get a TM, but I actually don't need any of that here. There's really nothing here Primarina wants. And since the Olivia fight tends to be hard anyway, I do fight pretty much every trainer on my way to the Kahuna fight, and that way I can feel pretty confident that I will win against her. Olivia leads off with her Nose Pass. I have Scald, Hidden Power, Workup, and Echoed Voice. I'm going to go for 1 Workup as she misses Thunder Wave, because starting Gen 6 I believe, Thunder Wave was given a 90% accuracy. Might have been Gen 7, I'm not sure. But that's fine though. I do get paralyzed, but Scald is going to do a lot of damage, but I end up not moving because of paralysis and getting flinched so many times that even though I defeat the Boldore, the Lycan Rock just goes full overkill and knocks me out with Continental Crush. Okay, I can see the problem here. I really should have equipped a Cherry Berry first. Either that or have taught Rest. I think Cherry Berry might be better here. Funnily enough, even though the Nose Pass has Sturdy, I still technically one-shot it because the Scald that put it into Sturdy range actually burned it as well, which was pretty funny. And because of that Cherry Berry, I am able to defeat Olivia. Yeah, I think actually this might have been the first time in these Pokemon Moon runs so far I actually beat Olivia without using Rest. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've beaten her without using Rest before. Rest ends up being a pretty good move against her. But anyway, with Olivia defeated, we have to go through the mandatory tour of the Aether Foundation, take on a Nihilego, and right before we go to Ula Ula Island, I can actually get the TM for Psychic as a reward from Wiki. This is going to be a very great move to have for Primarina. It's not going to be useful right now though, because here's the thing, as soon as I get off the boat, I'm going to be forced into a mandatory battle with Hao. And this battle with him is so difficult because this is the first fight where he will actually have a Lowland Raichu. And usually that thing absolutely destroys the living crap out of me. But then for some reason on turn 1, Raichu went for Psychic instead of Thunderbolt. I'll take it. I knock out the Raichu, knock out the Flareon, get to level 33, deny Double Slap because that's disgusting. Then I just continue using Scald on the Brionne because I don't really have a better move to use. I do get very low on health, but I do knock out the Brionne and I defeat Hao. Wow, okay, that I will say is the first time I've actually beaten him in one of these runs. That Raichu is such a freaking beast. And also, like I've mentioned in previous Pokemon Moon runs, you're not required to win in any of the Hao fights except for the very last one on top of Mount Lanakia. And if I had lost to Hao, he would have actually healed my team for me. But if you win against him, he does not heal your team for you. Makes sense. And then on Route 10, before I make my way up Mount Hakunali to do the Electric type trial, which I am a little bit worried about, I do teach Psychic in the place of Hidden Power, because I don't really need to hold on to Hidden Power right now. Although now that I think about it, I probably should have deleted Echoed Voice because I might want Hidden Power Fire for the Vikavolt fight. But we'll see how it works out. I can make my way to the top of Mount Hakunali, and then before I start the trial fight against Sophocles, and before that doing a fight against Mullane, I enter the center to buy some vitamins. And at the base of the mountain as well, there's a tree that gives EV reducing berries. I did get one reset in front of that tree because I wanted to aim for some particular berries. And the berry I wanted was a Kelpsy berry. This will get rid of 10 attack EVs because I do not want any attack EVs. Plus using this might allow me to use another vitamin in something like calcium. But anyway, today's vitamin of the day is 7 calcium. This will get our special attack EVs up to 100, which is as far as I can take it with just vitamins alone. It wasn't until Generation 8 where you could use vitamins all the way up to the maximum of 255 EVs. If that was a thing in Gen 7, I probably could have had some runs where I could buy like 13 calcium if I planned my money properly. But a man can only dream. Anyway, Mullane is a piece of cake. Let's go take out the Electric type trial with the Totem Vikavolt. The Vikavolt fight does get an Omni boost to it, but I don't think it'll be that big a deal. I go for Scald and it does exactly half. And because of that, I do feel pretty confident in my ability to beat this thing, but then it actually went for Charge, doing +1 to its special defense, and because of that, my second Scald cannot knock it out, and then Primarina ends up fainting, giving me a reset. And by reset, I mean blackout. I keep getting these mixed up. Then on the next turn, I end up getting the exact same thing to happen, and then the Vikavolt ends up living, then I get knocked out with Spark. Okay, yep, this is becoming a problem. Fortunately though, there are a lot of trainers on top of Mount Hakunali, so I can fight a lot of them for experience before I try for a third time. Okay, third try is the charm. I go for Scald, it does half, and instead of doing Charge, it went for Spark. That's good and bad. It didn't boost its special defense, but the spark paralyzed me. So yeah, that didn't go great. I do end up getting something very good to happen though. On my 4th attempt against the Vikavolt, Scald actually gets a burn, making Spark do far less damage, and because Paralysis only halves your speed starting Gen 7 instead of 3/4ing like it did in older games, I'm still able to outspeed the Charge-a-Bug, knock it out with Scald, and finally clear out the Electric Trial. So funnily enough, so far, the hardest trials were the Electric Trial and the Grass Trial, and both of those are my main weaknesses. Technically, my main weakness is also Poison, and I sorta consider the Fire Trial as a Poison Trial. So yeah, I pretty much got resets and blackouts where I thought I would. I unlocked the ability to use Mudstale, which allows me to head south of the island. And of course, the next trial is the Ghost type trial with the Totem Mimikyu. And since this was the generation that introduced Disguise, it wasn't the generation that nerfed Disguise, that was Generation 8, I will hit it once for 0 damage, then the Disguise breaks, which allows the Mimikyu to do whatever it wants. And plus, not only that, it also gets an Omni boost at the start of the fight, so it's going to be extremely bad. But one thing that does help it is on this island right here, before the abandoned Thrifty Mega Mart, I can pick up the TM for Shadow Ball. And I just sincerely hope that this will be enough to take on Mimikyu. Right away, I go for a Shadow Ball as Mimikyu used Mimic turn 1. Okay, that was pretty stupid of you. Then I can go ahead and use another Shadow Ball. It does about 3/4 to the Mimikyu. I get paralyzed with Lick, and obviously because of that, things aren't going particularly well. But somehow, I think I have a chance to win since I did knock out the Mimikyu. But sadly, Haunter is pretty fast, and because of the paralysis, I get knocked out, and I do decide to reset. It only ends up taking me 3 tries to actually clear out the Ghost Trial. I've been holding a Quick Claw for this fight because the Mimikyu is pretty darn fast. Plus with the Omni boost as well, so having the chance of going first will end up making the difference in this fight, and it actually did. And with the Electric and Ghost Trials cleared out, these are effectively all the trials for Ula Ula Island, but there are still some other major events to do. I gotta clear out the entirety of Po Town, do another fight against Guzma. Then as Lily gets kidnapped, we gotta head to the Aether Foundation. But then before we get on the boat, we get to challenge Nanu, the island kahuna. But before I go enter Po Town, I defeat the double battle in front of Po Town, which requires me to catch a second Pokemon. And while I still have my second Pokemon, I do head to the hotel near Hia Hia City, but I can take on this double battle in front of a quote-unquote Machamp and get myself the TM for Attract. Then I have to fly back to the Battle Royale arena, enter the Pokemon Center, and purchase myself the TM for Reflect. There will be some fights coming up where I do need this move. And when I do finally enter Po Town to clear out the Team Skullgrunts and the Guzma fight, none of them provide any resets or blackouts. And before I take on the Island Kahuna, I'm going to do a couple of quick things. I fly to Hau'oli City on Mele Mele Island, pick myself up a rare candy, then I fly to the top of Mount Hakonali and I do buy a couple more vitamins. I'm going to buy myself 2 Carbos and 1 Iron. Also, starting in Gen 7, I forgot to mention this, but all the vitamins cost $10,000 each, which honestly, it kind of makes the math easier for me since it's not 9,800, but at the same time, it is an extra $200. But to be fair, saving 200 Pokedollars on 10 vitamins doesn't really equal another vitamin, so it doesn't really matter. And then I actually head to this little garbage factory right above Mali City. I believe that's what the place is called. I'm still learning these games again. But I can beat these 2 trainers and get myself a Twisted Spoon to boost the power of Psychic by 20%. Little pro tip, do not do this. These fights are very slow to get the Twisted Spoon. It's actually better to go to Koni Koni City on Akala Island and just buy yourself an odd incense for like $10,000. Maybe that's not, I don't think that's the exact price, but either way, it's cheaper to just buy it, and it's faster too. But on the bright side, doing some of the trainers up here did get me to level 44 where I can learn Moonblast, which is essentially the fairy type version of Thunderbolt. Funnily enough, Thunderbolt got nerfed to 90 power in this game. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Having Moonblast is going to make the Nanu fight an absolute joke, so let's get on with it finally. Thanks to the power of the Expert Belt, I can one-shot the Sableye, the Krokorok, and the Persian. And luckily enough, the Persian didn't end up going for a Z move because I resist dark moves. You know what I'm starting to realize? Primarina is pretty busted in this game. It has a type advantage against Hala, Olivia, and Nanu, and pretty soon, Hapu. I mean, I get like you'll start with a Poplio, but still, Poplio gets disarming, boys. And with 3 of the 4 Kahuna fights done, the next thing we have to do is head back to the Aether Foundation and do a whole bunch of fights against the employees, against Faba, and at the end we have to do a fight against Guzma, which is the most difficult fight with Guzma at this point, as well as our first battle against Lusamine, although we're not required to win the Lusamine fight. And I don't get any resets or blackouts for most of this place, but against Guzma, I end up getting a blackout here because I didn't really do the fight properly, and his Golisopod ends up knocking me out. The second attempt against him does end up going a lot better, and with Guzma defeated, we can go attempt to take on Lusamine, but like I said, we're not required to win the fight, but according to my own unwritten rules, I am going to make an attempt to win the fight. And against her lead Clefable, the thing is very hard to kill with a special attacker, but that's fine though, I can knock it out pretty easily. Then next up is her Lilligant. I do switch over to Moonblast in one shot after it missed Stun Spore. Then I can use Moonblast on the Beware, then I can switch to Shadow Ball for the Mismagius, and then last up is the Melodic. I don't know if I can knock this out, but Moonblast ended up doing a lot more than I thought. So yeah, I ended up beating her. On the bright side, that was some very good XP. Next up on our destination is Pawnee Island. The only eventful things here are the Hapu fight, the Kahuna battle, as well as the final Totem fight, but the Totem fight against the Komodo is honestly pretty pathetic. It has a lot of weaknesses. Plus, the Totem fight takes place after the entirety of the Pawnee Canyon, and every time I'm in there, I pretty much always fight everybody. But while I'm on Pawnee Island, I do get to the Pokemon Center right here, and I purchase myself the TM for Blizzard. You may be wondering why not get Ice Beam? The TM for Ice Beam is in Mount Lanakia, which is essentially before the Pokemon League, so if I want an Ice move, I'm gonna have to get Blizzard. But before I worry about any of that, I fight all the trainers to the north in the Pawnee Wilds. I pretty much always do the training here in the Pawnee Wilds just because there are so many trainers that give very good experience yields. Although this Ace trainer with the Garbodor and Toxapex, I really need to stop fighting her. She is the most difficult trainer on this entire route. But you may be wondering why I choose to keep fighting her in these runs. There is one trainer on this route that have 4 Oricorios with Focus Sashes, and it's really good XP, plus she gives you a Focus Sash if you need it for a future fight. And you have to beat all the trainers in the Pawnee Wilds in order to even battle her. But I don't think I need it, so I just end up skipping that fight entirely and just moving on. And with the ability to use Machamp unlocked, we can watch Hapu become the official Island Kahuna, then we can clear out the Executor Island quest, and then we can fly back to Akala Island, re-enter the Lush Jungle with Machamp, get ourselves the TM for Energy Ball just in case we need it, as well as a rare candy. And at this moment, I feel ready to take on Hapu. But before I do that though, there is one Team Skullgrunt with 5 Pokemon, and I surprisingly get a blackout on him, which was definitely unexpected. But I beat him on the second try. And now, let's go finally take on Hapu. I feel pretty great about this. She leads off with a Lowland Doug trio. I lead off with my level 51 Primarina, and I have a moveset overhaul containing Scald, Energy Ball, Work Up, and Moonblast. Energy Ball is going to be very useful here. The Doug trio just uses Sandstorm, that's pretty much it. Next up is the Mudstale. I outspeed it, go for Scald, and one-shot it. Its special defense is not that great. Then I can use Moonblast on the Flygon for an easy one-shot, and then the Gastrodon is the reason I picked up Energy Ball. So, yeah, she was a complete and utter one-shot sweep. You didn't expect that, did you? I certainly did not. No problems in the Pawnee Canyon with all of the trainers here. I always defeat every trainer here for the experience, as well as get the rare candy off to the side. And then afterwards, there's that whole captain list trial with Komodo, but I'm not even going to play an intro. That thing is 4 times weak to fairy. What a joke. And we're nearing the end game. This has been a very great run so far, aside from a few hiccups near Akala Island. Then inside the Ultra Space Wild, we gotta take on Lucamine one last time, and unlike the first one, we are required to win. But it doesn't really matter though, I can just set up workups on the Clefable. Her Clefable is more of a defensive tank rather than anything. She likes to spam Metronome just to be a troll, but if you give it enough Scalds, I do end up eventually burning the Clefable, and there's only so many times she can use Moonlight to keep herself healed up. Although I will admit, in the moment, I was getting pretty pissed off. So I do end up deciding to use another workup. This thing is just taking forever, and then it crit me with Moonblast. Dude. But that's fine though. Once I knock out the Clefable, the rest of her team should be easy, but the Lilligant does outspeed and knock me out with Petal Dance. Okay, that was stupid. It also doesn't help that Clefable likes to use Cosmic Power to boost its special defense, and the chances of getting a crit in this generation are pretty low. I believe it's 1 in 24 chance, so it's really not that likely. So essentially here, what I'm trying to say, Clefable is a very huge wall for special attackers. You know what my solution ends up being? Just teaching Rest. If I have the ability to use Rest on the Clefable if I need to have HP, I'll be all good to go to beat the rest of her team. Because the 2 times I did beat the Clefable, her Lilligant just completely destroys me with Petal Dance. So having Rest was definitely the answer. And with Lucamine defeated, we can now head to Mount Lanikia and up to the Pokemon League. But obviously there are the mandatory battles with Gladion and Hau. These are the only fights against both of them where you are required to win. But I did come to the Gladion fight pretty well prepared. The Crobat does outspeed me with Cross Poison, doing a lot of damage because of a critical hit, but my main plan is to set up a Reflect right away, which will prevent the Cross Poison from doing as much damage to me and allowing the rest of his Pokemon to knock me out. Plus, Blizzard is the only move I have that can actually one-shot it. Then on the Silvally, it does outspeed, but it can't do much damage to me. It is a Silvally Fire type though. Then next up is the Weavile. I switch over to Moonblast. Night Slash doesn't do much thanks to the Reflect, and I am slowly healing up with the Shell Bell. The Lucario does end up using a Fighting type Z move on me, but like I said, thanks to the Reflect, I am able to live. Now let's go take on Hau. But before we do fight him, the move Reminder is inside the Pokemon Center. I could choose to get Sparkling Aria if I wanted to, and it would be an upgrade compared to Scald. And I actually choose not to. Even though Scald is 10 power weaker, the chance of a burn just seems worth it to me. But let's see how the Hau fight goes. I do enter the fight with Shadow Ball in the place of Blizzard, specifically for the Raichu. Next up is the Kamala. I switch over to Scald, and it does about half, and then Wood Hammer just completely destroys me. But that's fine though. The Pokemon Center is right next to this guy, so I can easily accept a quick Blackout, then just go back and try again. As I get more resets to Hau, I did end up replacing Scald with Rest just as a backup emergency move, and I figured having Reflect on the Kamala would make it a lot better because Wood Hammer can't do as much, but then during the Reflect, at one point it actually crit me. Dude, come on. By the time I finally win against Hau, I got to a point where I just started resetting because I was doing Resto Chesto strats and I didn't want to lose the Chesto Berry. I end up getting a grand total of 13 blackouts and 16 resets overall in the run until I finally defeat the guy. That was brutal, but hopefully not as brutal as the Pokemon League. So let's go ahead and take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first member of the Elite Four I take on is Acerola, the Ghost-type user. She leads off with Sableye. I still have Shadow Ball and Moonblast as my main offensive moves, but it ends up being just fine. Acerola doesn't really often provide a challenge for most Pokemon unless they're weak against Ghost or Ice types. And she does end off with her Drifblim, but her Drifblim absolutely sucks. It's a really bad Pokemon when she uses it. which is a shame though. I've had Drift Blim in other games provide problems, such as the Drift Blim on Flint's team in Diamond and Pearl. That thing likes to use minimized baton pass. But anyway, Acerola is all defeated. Next up is the Fighting type Elite Four member, Hala. No moveset changes needed here. Hariyama does go for a fake out and I one-shot it with Moonblast. Next up is Crabominable. It meets the same fate. I get to level 70. I do not outspeed the Primeape, but all it did was use Cross Chop. Then the Beware is a one-shot with Moonblast. And then last up is the Polybreath. I outspeed and one-shot it. You know, it's kind of refreshing seeing an easy Hala fight. I've had plenty of runs so far where Hala was just unnecessarily brutally difficult. This guy makes every other fighting type specialist in the Pokemon series look like absolute Brunos. Next up is the Rock type Elite Four member, Olivia. Energy Ball in the place of Shadow Ball is going to see some play here. Her lead Relicanth is 4 times weak to the move, and even though the Golem does have Sturdy and hits me with a powerful electric move, it only ends up doing less than half, and Olivia wastes all of her full restores on it. Then on the Lycanroc, I didn't know if I would one-shot it with Energy Ball, and I surprisingly do, but the Carbink is going to be a 2-shot because that thing is defensive as hell. Then last up is the Probopass. I do use one Moonblast to break the Sturdy, and then when I realized just how little damage a regular Energy Ball did, I'm thinking, uh-oh. I do end up beating her though because I did have Rest and a bunch of Moonblasts. I had to knock her out really slowly, but at least she used up all her full restores on Golem, but that was definitely too close for comfort. Next up is the Flying type Elite Four member, Kahili. Scald and Ice Beam are going to see some play in this battle. I go ahead and use Ice Beam on the Skarmory right away, as it does almost all of its health, but surprisingly Sturdy didn't activate. It might have left it at 2 HP or something. Then on the Mandibuzz, I do end up freezing it, but Kahili uses a full restore anyway, so it's not like that matters. Then the Crobat hits me with Steel Wing, not doing much damage, although I am poisoned going into the Toucannon, but the Toucannon really isn't that threatening, and neither is her Fire type Oricorio. Wow, this whole Elite Four has actually been really easy. I think it's because I've done most of my training on how specifically to get the level that I needed. There have been a couple of runs where I needed to blackout train in the league, but thankfully today is not one of those days. Before I take on the Pokemon Professor, I equip a Quick Claw and go into the fight with a moveset of Rest, Scald, Reflect, and Echoed Voice. Just trust me on this. Professor Kukui leads off with Lycanroc. I go ahead and use a Reflect right away, thankfully getting a Quick Claw, so that Stone Edge did virtually nothing. But Stone Edge does have a high crit chance, so I better get rid of it. Next up is the Magnezone. It does have Sturdy. I was initially thinking of setting up Echoed Voices on it, but that'd be a pretty bad idea. And fortunately, Scald does do more than half to the Magnezone, and it would prevent the full restore, but the Magnezone ends up critting me and knocking out Primarina. Well, that was a quick loss. On the next attempt, I don't get a Quick Claw Reflect on the Lycanroc, but it doesn't matter if I do or not. The first Stone Edge is just always going to do less than half. Plus, if you use Rest on the Lycanroc, once it uses up all of its Stone Edges, it's just going to use Excel Rock, which is not that great of a move. It's essentially just a Rock-type quick attack. Then when I get back to the Magnezone, I go for Scald again, I get hit with Thunder Wave, then I get a Quick Claw Paralysis, which is just lovely, and I get another reset. After a few more losses, I do decide to switch my held item to a Lumberry, so that way I can get rid of the paralysis. It does mean I have to go without a Chesto Berry for Rest, but that's fine though. I think it's better to just get rid of the paralysis. Then on the Braviary, I decided to go for rest because the reflect ran out and I need to keep the reflect up, but things don't end up going too well. It takes me a couple more tries and I get to a grand total of 21 resets into the run until I am finally able to slowly defeat Professor Kukui and finally clock in the run, with a real time of 2 hours, 36 minutes, and 12 seconds, with 21 resets and 13 blackouts at level 71, and a game time after the long ass credits of 9 hours and 43 minutes. This Pokemon was so good right up until the final few fights. It did really great in the league, it did not do great against Professor Kukui, and the Gladion fight was not that bad. The How fight on top of the mountain was so freaking brutal. And you can really tell just how bad things are when not only do you not get trainer boosted experience in Gen 7, but the Lucky Egg is in the post game, so you really have to think of better methods of training. But honestly, looking back, if I were to attempt this again, I think I would have done early EV training for special attack and make the later parts of the fights a lot better. But who knows, we'll figure that out another day. But anyway, if we take a look at the leaderboard, compared to Incineroar, Primarina did do better than Incineroar. I don't know how it compares to Decidueye because as of recording this, I haven't refilmed Decidueye's run yet, but I am willing to bet, just from guessing in the past, it probably performed the worst of the three. Decidueye it really gets held back by its moveset and its typing. It's so unfortunate. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the backport Pokemon we do on stream, including all the Mega Evolutions we've been doing in Crystal, as well as access to members-only re-ranked videos that are initially streamed in my Discord server. But anyway, we only have one more Pokemon Moon run left. Tomorrow for New Year's Eve, our final video of Daily December is coming out with Pokemon Moon with Silvally. And if you're wondering, yes, the memory discs are all in the postgame, so we're essentially just stuck with a normal type Silvally. But still, normal types are really good, especially with Stab Return. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow as we wrap up Daily December.